Welcome back to the Jon Krawczynski Show. You know, John, we spend a lot of time analyzing and parsing and criticizing and projecting. Some days you should just enjoy our jobs. Fans should enjoy being fans. I thought the Wolves' victory in Denver was an absolute blast. Some great moments. Anthony with the difficult three. But I think my favorite moment of the season, Naz Reed hitting that twisting floater in the lane and just bounding up the court like a little kid who just won his first AAU game or something like that. That was fantastic.
It was, and I think it was important, Jim, because we've talked a lot all season long about how this team has been a little moody, has kind of ridden the emotional roller coasters, and when they have been in the down times, sometimes you've looked at them and just been like, where is their spirit? Where's their connectivity? Like, are they really all in this together? And I think we saw a lot in that Denver game, but particularly on that Naz play. Just the whole bench leaping out onto the court after the timeout and Naz smiling and, everyone into it, Julius Randle included, Ant included, like everyone was just hyped about it. And I think that this team needs some of that spirit to come back to it. And Naz is one of the very kind of most obvious drivers of that, because when he is doing what he can do like that, like make and like the in and out dribble that he had a little before that to go into the rack, he is so skilled and so big that he just drops jaws, and that is including in the fan base, but also including on his team. And so when he is doing his thing and is really electric like that, it really sends a charge through the rest of the group. And it's not surprising then that they were able to kind of ride that wave to one of their best performances in recent memory. They've been kind of just playing around for the last month plus. And this was one of the first games where you can walk out of it and say, yeah, they really played well. And having Naz do what Naz can do, I think is a big part of that.
Agreed. This is the Jon Krawczynski Show, part of TalkNorth.com. Best way to listen, subscribe to your favorite podcast app. You can also find the show on YouTube via video, and you can just go to TalkNorth.com and check out John's show and all the other shows, including John's contributions to the Viking Update show. We're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services studio, and we're presented to you by Lexus of Wayzata and Maplewood. I'll tell you more about our sponsors here in a little bit. I always wonder about Naz's impact on the emotions of this team, because he's a bench player, but he's a great bench player, and he's an excellent player, but he's also a guy who worked his way up from kind of nothing. I mean, how central is he in terms of his personality?
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing to parse, because Naz's personality is on the spectrum closer to Jaden McDaniels than it is to Ant, let's say, just in terms of like really outward emotion. He's a quiet guy. He certainly will mix it up with opponents. He will, he'll kind of snipe at referees every once in a while, and he's a trusted voice in that locker room, but he is much more of a measured dude, just kind of in the way that he conducts himself. But to your point, Jim, his game is so loud and so kind of attention grabbing, let's say. There's a lot of sixth men throughout the years and in this league right now who they can come off the bench and they can score some points and they can knock down some threes and really give your team a boost, and that's good. But the way that Naz does things, I think, carries extra electricity, because he is not just hitting threes. He is hitting off the dribble, step back, 3 feet behind the line threes. He is not just getting to the rim. He is crossing you over, kind of getting to the lane, jumping off the wrong foot, flipping it up with his left hand and scoring. It is so much more kind of aesthetically pleasing to watch Naz when he is rolling. And we can look at the league and these players, and a lot of times, of course, there is a real deep knowledge for and respect of efficiency of, just kind of the subtle things in the game that a player can do well. But with Naz, there is such an appreciation among his teammates for the highlight reel play. And they get as excited and as amped up when he's doing that as the fans do. And so there is an element to him that is very, very unique in the ball handling that he has for a player his size, the shooting that he has for a player his size. And so when he is optimizing his skill set in a game, it looks different than almost any other player. And so that, I think, breathes some sort of different kind of swagger and belief into the Timberwolves when that is happening, because they say, man, we've got somebody that can do things at his size that very, very few other players in the league can do. And that just gives them a little bit different way of carrying themselves, because, it's not Wemby. Obviously, he's doing things. He's an alien in an entirely different way, but Naz is a unicorn in his own right, and just with a lot of the different things that he has been able to put together. And finally, the appreciation that they all have for knowing where he came from, undrafted, G League, the work that he has put in, he has endeared himself to that group because they know how much he cares and how much he's put into it and how much improvement he's shown over the 7 years that he has been with this team. And so you put all of that together, and he is one of the most important players on this roster because of his ability to change the temperature of the water very, very quickly, in the best of ways when he is going forward.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I thought DiVincenzo was really, and I thought it was really interesting to see this team play the way it plays when they're making that extra defensive effort and where they're willing to get out and push. I think DiVincenzo, his defensive awareness, his defensive hustle, I thought he created so much for the team on Sunday.
He's just such a winning player, Jim. Even when the shot isn't falling, which it has been lately, and that's been great to see him dial it up from deep and just bring that dimension to it. But he is so much more than just a knockdown shooter. And so when on a team that often needs somebody to show that second effort, somebody to show that extra hustle, that kind of grit and that grime, DiVincenzo is far and away the most consistent player in giving that kind of play that kind of gets this team going. This is a team through much of the season that has looked on occasion bored, that has looked disinterested with the regular season, that has kind of taken on an attitude of, can we just get to the playoffs and dispense with all of this meaningless stuff? Well, Donte DiVincenzo has been the exact opposite of that. And especially when this team is in one of those funks and one of those lulls, DiVincenzo is the one who is being confrontational with the other team, who is sticking his nose in and blowing up a screen, who is getting in passing lanes, diving on the floor for loose balls, grabbing rebounds in traffic. And so that is what, we talked about going into the trade deadline, and there were all these rumors about DiVincenzo possibly move in, and I was saying regularly on this show that DiVincenzo isn't going anywhere because Timberwolves front office and coaching staff knows that he is so important to just the substance of this team. He gives this team a little bit of more backbone. He gives this team some kind of, I tweeted it out the other day. Donte DiVincenzo gives a shit. Like, that's what he is, and he always does. And there are times where you look at this team and you wonder, do they really care? Like, is this a time where they really, really care about this? And you never have to ask that about Donte DiVincenzo. And so incredibly valuable. And when you mix and marry the hustle plays and the grittiness with a shot that is falling, then he just becomes a difference maker on a whole different level.
No doubt about it. All right, let's get to the rest of the key players and where this team is as we kind of enter what is truly the stretch run and the chase for top seeds. First, though, we want to thank Aquarius Home Services.
Is your water leaving white scale, smelling funky, or making you a bit suspicious of what's in it? One call to Aquarius Home Services, your authorized independent Connecticut dealer, means worry-free water for your home and family. Schedule your free water test today and experience the Connecticut difference for just $9.95 per month for the first 3 months. Aquarius Home Services. One call, problem solved. Earning the right to be recommended. Schedule today at aquariushomeservices.com.
And we'd like to hear from John about Lexus of Wayzata and Maplewood.
If you are in the market for a new luxury vehicle, look no further than our good friend Charlie Swanson at Lexus. Whether you're on the west or the east side of the Twin Cities, they've got you covered with 2 great locations, Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. Check out the all-new Lexus TX, a spacious SUV with 3 rows of seating and plenty of room for all your gear. Head over to lexusofwayzata.com or lexusofmaplewood.com for details and to find your next ride today.
When you combine the fact that Jaden McDaniels is having his best season ever, DiVincenzo is playing really well, Anthony Edwards is now closing games better than he ever has before, and it seems like they are finally getting to a point where they have an 8-man rotation they really like. I mean, I start looking at this team and saying, I just almost expect them to be back in the Western Conference Finals putting up a fight.
Yeah, I mean, this has been a really sort of interesting stretch, let's say the last 6 weeks, because when you look at some of their performances, the Philadelphia game, others, you're like, man, what is going wrong with this team? Even in wins against like super shorthanded Clippers and a few others, Dallas, and you're just like, they're just not really putting their foot on the gas. Like, what is the ceiling of this group? Then they go and beat Denver, and then you kind of just take a step back and you look at in their last 15 games, they're 11-4. Their last 10, they're 7-3. Their last 7, they're 6-1. And it's a team that has appeared to be working through all of these issues kind of internally, about who they are and what they do well and kind of trying to mitigate the ups and downs. And even in their ugliest moments, they've generally come out on the winning side of things. And now they are in 4th place. And now they are like percentage points behind Houston for 3rd place. And it is a team that when maybe in this regular season and, kind of the way that things have been going, you wonder a little bit about their full potential. But when you put these guys in a playoff series against, any team in the West, they are going to be a difficult out as long as they are playing well and locked in. I mean, when you get contributions on the bench from Naz and Bones Highland and Ayo Dosunmu, you have Kyle Anderson coming into the mix, I think, eventually to help out here a little bit. Then if you get Julius Randle back playing kind of the way that he was early in the season, all of a sudden with Anthony Edwards, with Jaden, with Donte, with, Rudy playing great defensively, with all of the things that they have at their disposal, it is a team that is going to be hard to pick against in a playoff series. I mean, I don't think they'd be the favorites against Oklahoma City. I don't know if they'd be the favorites against a healthy Denver, but it would not shock me at all if they beat either one of those teams. And if you can beat either one of those teams, that means you can go to the Western Conference Finals. That means you can come out of the West. It's all there for them. And just watching the unsatisfactory nature of the way they've gone about a lot of this regular season, and then still looking at where they're at, man, it does make you think that, yes, anything is possible for this team, including maybe a first-round exit.
Oh, yeah. I would pick them. The Lakers can't defend them. Mm-hmm. Houston just hasn't proven anything yet. Mm-hmm. They're not playing great right now. San Antonio, at some point, San Antonio is going to take over the league. Mm-hmm. But it's a young team. that doesn't really know how to play a playoff series, and playoff series are completely different. I just like the Wolves' experience in that. I would pick the Wolves to beat any of these teams except for Oklahoma City.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And when you look at sort of, to your point, I think Houston's offense is going to be difficult for them in the playoffs unless Reed Shepherd really kind of starts going off. And then San Antonio's shooting, I think, is going to be...
not a good 3-point shooting team.
Yeah, is going to be an issue for them in a playoff series. And Oklahoma City, I think they need to be the clear favorite, especially if Jalen Williams gets back healthy and gets back to full form. But they have looked slightly more vulnerable this year, especially after that 24-1 start, and they look at least beatable. And so, the Timberwolves, I think, would really struggle with turnover control against Oklahoma City, but they've beaten them a couple of times, and they would go in to that series believing that they could win. And so it all depends on when you get these teams on, I'm starting to wonder, Jim, if it wouldn't be best for them to play Oklahoma City in the second round. And maybe they have a little bit more energy and gas in the tank and just ready for it. And then if you get to the Western Conference Finals, let's say against San Antonio or someone like that, then maybe you're in a little bit better shape. But either way, it is definitely a team that should look at the opportunity in front of itself to not only get to the Western Conference Finals, but the real possibility that they could come out of the West. And in this league, windows open and close quickly. And so the importance of taking advantage of this opportunity when it is here is just sky high, because yes, Jaden and Ant and Naz are all younger, but you just don't know what's going to happen with them over the next couple of years, what's going to happen in San Antonio, Oklahoma City, all these other teams. So if the window opens, you have to do everything in your power to just jump through it and take advantage of it. And that's why Tim Connolly moved Rob Dillingham and Leonard Miller for Ayo Dosunmu. That's why they are loading up that's why they're going and getting Kyle Anderson. This is a team that is making win now moves because they believe they can win now.
Yes. All right. Let's get to the evolving bench, the arrival of Kyle Anderson, who still could see meaningful minutes after a game where it really was an 8-man rotation. Right now, let's hear more about True Vision Institute.
True Vision Institute in Bloomington. Go to truevision.com and set up your free consultation. Get in to the good folks there and just let them take care of you. That's the biggest thing here. They will take care of you. They will help you find the right vision correction procedures or options for you. I went into True Vision almost 2 years ago now, and we settled on LASIK surgery for me, and it was one of the best things I've ever done for myself. But most importantly, as I've been telling you for 2 years, you feel so well taken care of by the good folks at True Vision. They welcome you with open arms, they educate you on the process, and they get you from start to finish just so easily that you're actually going to be kind of embarrassed for yourself that you didn't do this a million years ago. I said when Dr. Chu takes you into the room and your procedure is over in 3 minutes, literally, and then you go on about the rest of your life just like looking without the hassles of glasses and contacts. It's just such a great feeling and such a great experience. So go to truevision.com, set up your consultation, tell them the Jon Krawczynski Show sent you, and get on with living your life with vision correction at True Vision.
I'm sure Steve Terry from TSR Injury Law was very happy to see Naz Reed bounding up and down the court. I think that's a TSR ad in the making. The serious part, if you ever are injured, you're going to need really good representation from ethical, effective people. That's TSR Injury Law, 612-TSR-TIME, 612-TSR-TIME. And John, we have a really cool event coming up at Headflyer Brewing on March 27th. Tell us about it.
That's right. Another live show, Jim, at Headflyer Brewing on March 27th. We will have more details to come on guests, on kind of giveaways and things of that nature. But having been to Headflyer for these shows, how much fun it is. And this is actually kind of extra special show because Head Flyer has announced that they are going to close their tap room. And so this is a bit of a going away party for Head Flyer. It's been an unbelievable partner for us. It's been an unbelievable venue for Timberwolves fans over the last couple of years to go in and watch games and watch live shows and be a part of this community. And so, it's been a very tough time, kind of in the Twin Cities for breweries and restaurants and things like that. Head Flyer is not going to have a tap room anymore. It's a wonderful place to go. And so this is as much a celebration of what's happening with the Wolves and getting ready for the playoffs as it is a thank you for everything that the good people at Head Flyer have done for this community over the last several years. And so March 27th, that's a Friday night. It's in between two home games. We will have more information coming about time, figure probably around 5, 6 o'clock, and then about guests and giveaways as well. But please mark it on your calendar. Come on out and hang out with us at Head Flyer one more night, and let's really celebrate what kind of community we built there at Head Flyer and what great partners and hosts Head Flyer has been for us.
Yeah, they've been fantastic. I'm really sad to hear that they're closing down. Let's do what we can to make this a nice going away party for the good people at Head Flyer. All right, back to basketball. Kyle Anderson arrives. The young guys are not playing very much. Bones is playing great. Ayus continues to have bursts where he's really effective. What do you make of the bench going forward?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out, but I do anticipate that Kyle Anderson is going to get real minutes. I think that he is the type of player that, first of all, we know Chris Finch just trusts implicitly. But he also does things that this team really needs. And one is he can handle the ball and take a little bit of pressure off of Anthony Edwards, bring the ball up the court. Secondly, he can be a defensive presence on that unit when Rudy Gobert is off the floor. And so his ability to switch, his ability to guard 1 through 4 or 5 is going to be huge for this team. Just in those non-Rudy minutes. And that's been one of the biggest bugaboos for this team all year long is when Rudy goes off the floor, the defense just falls apart. And I think that putting Kyle Anderson in some of those moments is going to be very, very helpful for that part of things. The third part is like he is a salty veteran leader who's going to come into this locker room and has great relationships with many of the players in there. And he is a truth teller. And that is going to be helpful for this team. We have a lot of really nice guys in that locker room and a lot of guys who are a little more on the quiet side. And so for Kyle to kind of come in and be able to make his voice heard eventually and just help just message and get people on the same page, all of those things, it's going to be a big thing. I don't know that he's going to come in, Jim, and play 20 minutes a night. I don't think that's realistic. But I do think that on the nights that maybe Bones doesn't have it or on the nights where they need to get bigger in that second unit, you're going to see Kyle play. And he is going to be out there. And so adding that type of a piece for a team that really does fancy itself as just 1 or 2 elements away from a deep playoff run, I think is key. And now you look at what Tim Connolly was able to do, because the third part the one other aspect about this, Jim, is that Kyle Anderson had other suitors on the open market. Denver was really trying to get him. Several other teams were really interested. But Tim Connolly really did do a good job of selling Kyle Anderson on coming back here. Chris Finch, has played him in big moments. And so I think that there's some belief from Kyle that he's not just coming back here to sit on the bench. And the way that Tim Connolly and the Timberwolves handled Kyle Anderson's exit last time really did lay the groundwork for this return, because they were able to orchestrate a sign and trade with Golden State so that Kyle Anderson got years and money that he wouldn't have been able to get had it just been a straight, okay, see you later, Kyle, thanks for everything that you've done. And those kinds of things that an organization does can really come back to help you. And so I know that Kyle Anderson really appreciated how things ended here the last time, how the organization did right by him. And so when it came time for him to make a decision about going to several teams, all of whom are in the playoff hunt. The Wolves coming out on top was really a testament to just kind of the organizational competence that they've built and credibility that they've built with players. And so this is a feather in their cap. And, will he help them win the championship and be a huge part? We'll see. But I think bigger picture is that he comes in to solidify and give them one more piece to use that they can really rely on kind of in bigger moments. And so it was a big move by Tim Connolly to land him.
We saw the Wolves really activate their running game on Sunday. Was that a matchup thing, or could that continue?
I think it does have to continue, Jim. It is. I don't think it's any coincidence that Ayo Dosunmu's best performance so far maybe it was in that Denver game, and it was with him and Bones putting their foot on the gas and going. And you saw the difference that it made, because in the first quarter, the Wolves were terrible. I mean, they were not moving their feet offensively. They were stuck in mud defensively, and it looked like this was an early game, and they were not awake. And it was just like, where are you guys? Are you going to show up? And then Ayo Dosunmu and Bones Hyland come in, and they just start going. And that changed the entire game when Bones gets out in transition, hits a few shots, and Ayo was out running and finishing on the break. That just breathes life into the team, and it helped them just get some easy buckets when the offense was really struggling early on. And once you see the ball go through the net a few times and you catch a rhythm, then you're just so much more capable of sustaining offense the rest of the way. And so it may not be exactly the way that Ant and Rudy and Julius want to play, but that's okay. You can have different ways of winning games and different matchups within the game. And so if Ayo and Bones are this sped up kind of totally different version of the Timberwolves when they come in the game, I think that's a really good weapon to have, because that means an opponent has to prepare for multiple looks and multiple versions of the Timberwolves. And that's a lot harder to prepare for and adjust to within the game than if it's just one style of play the whole way. It's similar to, in the NFL, you have a power back and you have a speed back. And those different looks that you can give defenses really does help your offense quite a bit. And I just think that this is the kind of environment that both Bones and Ayo really thrive on, is broken court, out running and wild, making fancy passes, finishing at the rim, kind of relocating for open, clean looks from three. And that's the kind of play that those guys work best in. And so you have to embrace that if you're Chris Finch, if you're the Timberwolves. And then when it's time to go back to Ant and Rudy and Julius, yeah, then maybe you do slow things down a little bit. But they have to have that other gear, and it has to be consistent for them to give them a real chance to just be able to win games either way and be resourceful with it. And so I love it, and I think it's critically important to what they're doing.
No doubt about it. All right, one segment to go, and some really interesting things I still want to get to here, including the relationship between Finch and Ant, which is fascinating. First, though, tell us about Princeton's Liquors.
Princeton's Liquors in Maple Grove. We've been telling you about it for years. I love saying we've been telling you about it for years. That means we have great relationships with these companies that we have partnerships with. And if you have noticed a kind of through line on our advertisers, most of them are very local companies that have been embedded in this community, that are a big part of what we do. They're part of your everyday lives. And Princeton's Liquors has been a part of everyone's everyday lives for decades and decades. They have great craft beer, great bourbon selection, but whatever you want, wine, spirits, THC, seltzers, and gummies, Princeton's Liquors has you covered. So you go into Princeton's Liquors, they will take great care of you. They will help you find whatever it is that you need, domestic, exotic, whatever it is you're looking for. and you will walk out of Princeton's Liquors with just everything that you could possibly want for a party, for a hangout, for watching a game at home and chilling. Princeton's Liquors in Maple Grove has you covered. Tell them the Jon Krawczynski Show sent you.
We'd also like to thank Royal Credit Union.
At Royal Credit Union, we believe in banking with purpose. That's why we're here for you and your community with people-first service, local support, and all the accounts and loans you need to help reach your financial goals. As a not-for-profit cooperative, everything we do benefits the people and communities we serve, because Royal isn't just where you bank, it's where you belong. Experience the Royal Credit Union difference and learn more at rcu.org/royal support. Insured by NCUA. Loans subject to credit approval. Equal credit opportunity.
And now the sponsor of our end of the show Twitter question, sglambchops.com.
Go to Lamb Chops and get anything that you need to wear to the North Loop, to a Timberwolves game, lounging around your house. They have unbelievable casual wear, super high quality. And if you go to sglambchops.com, use the promo code JONK20, you get 20% off anything that you have there. They just had another pop-up shop, in Target Center with some awesome Wolves gear and a new version of that. You have to be in Target Center to get that Wolves gear, but they were also at Head Flyer Brewing on Sunday as part of a Wolves watch party for the Nuggets game and had, some merch there as well. And so again, another company that is in this community that you can see, you can touch, you can feel, and has really kind of given back. Jordan and Craig are courtside at Wolves and Lynx games all of the time. They are fans just like you are fans. So when you support them, you're supporting one of us. And you go to sglambchops.com, promo code JONK20 for hoodies, sweatshirts, hats, pants, shorts, t-shirts, everything that you could want to look good and feel good, all courtesy of Lamb Chops.
Been some really interesting conversation lately about the relationship between Finch and Ant. Ant hit the shot the other night, and the back. Well, I'll let you take us through the back and forth. But you've been covering these guys. You know them. Take us inside that relationship.
Yeah, it's very easy for someone who isn't familiar with this, with Anthony, with Finch, with this whole dynamic, to look at what happened in that Clippers game. And I was there. I was in Los Angeles when it happened. And you see Ant make a huge, another impossible 3-pointer in the corner, step back over 2 defenders to really kind of seal the win. And then he immediately goes over to Finch and starts barking and saying, you basically, that's what I do, and just letting him know in very colorful language. And someone who isn't familiar would look at it, oh man, they're going at it. And here's a star player and a coach that are not getting along, that are not on the same page, and something's got to give here. But these two have been together for 5.5 years now. And as Finch said with Colin Cowherd, they both have a similar combative, salty personality in big moments, but they use that to express themselves in a way that you might think is expressing anger, when that's just how they communicate. I talked to Anthony Edwards in the locker room after the game. I talked to Finch after the game. I talked to a bunch of players kind of in the locker room, and there was zero kind of worry about, oh man, Ant and Finch got into it. When Ant makes a shot like that, falling away, step back over Chris Dunn and Derek Jones Jr., and seals the win, and then he comes over and says, this is what I do. He looks mad, but really he's just expressing himself. He's just excited, and he is telling everyone in the arena, including his coaching staff, that no, this is what I do. I make shots in this, and I've got you. So don't worry about it, and let me do what I do. And Finch, in that moment, and I asked him right after the game, and he really had no idea what I was talking about when I asked him about the interaction, which tells you that in that moment, he was not even hearing Ant. He was going back to the huddle and trying to figure out what they were going to do defensively on the next possession. And he didn't take any of that personally either. These are two hyper competitive dudes. And so they will go back and forth at each other and challenge each other and push each other in ways that maybe you don't do with your boss at the bank, at the local high school or whatever. Like, people don't communicate like that in regular environments. This is not a regular environment. This is 20,000 people watching you try and win a game to get playoff positioning, and there's just going to be highly charged moments. Anthony Edwards really respects Chris Finch. Chris Finch knows how important Anthony Edwards is to his coaching career and what has happened there. And so they are going to argue. They are going to bicker. They are going to disagree sometimes. But every single time that has happened in the 5.5 years that I've been covering them, one of the cooler heads comes out later and says, you know what? Finchy was right. Or, you know what? Yeah, I should have done this for Ant in that spot. That was my mistake. And so they both have accountability, and they are both able to, once they both sober up, look at the film and look at the situation, and then come back and talk to each other and be like, yep, you were right about this, my bad, or vice versa. So this is how those two interact. And there are going to be moments of tension in long seasons, but the respect has always been there, and I think that it remains. And so it's not much ado about nothing, but it is important to just really let people know about how these two do communicate, how these two do lean on each other, in tough times and in good times, and how they both get through it and have the sort of humility to look at it afterward. And if one of either of them screwed up in the situation, they tell each other, and then it's water under the bridge and on to the next thing.
Our friend Chris Hine wrote the book about Anthony Edwards, and he revealed that he had a conversation with Mike Conley, where Conley basically said he sits next to Ant when Finch is ripping on him and just tells him to calm down, which is, that you wonder what effect a veteran can have who's not playing in a locker room. That's what they can do.
No doubt, 100%. And it's important to be able to manage those situations and have the infrastructure around them. And I do think, I also think that there's a couple coaches on the staff, or maybe even a few people in the front office, who sometimes will pull Finch aside and say, hey, look, man, loosen your grip on the steering wheel a little bit here. And so there are people around, both players and coaches, that try to offer real feedback that can help both in these situations, because the only way that it goes poorly is if nobody addresses these things, and it festers and it stews, and then one confrontation begets another, and then you have a real problem on your hands. And I think the Timberwolves have done a very good job of constructing a roster around Ant to help with everything, including kind of the mental side of processing all of these situations that happen. And then they have a staff and a front office around Finch who help him when he is gritting his teeth and when he is really grinding, and it's time to say, hey, take a deep breath. I wrote a story last year going into the playoffs, and Finch did mention that, in the difficulties of the early post-Cat era, he was really having a hard time kind of finding the right mix, and he was really tense about things. And Matt Lloyd, the GM, had a conversation with him about perspective, about needing to maybe relax a little bit and just let it come rather than force it. And Finch really credited Matt with sort of helping to redirect him and refocus him. And then, lo and behold, during the Western Conference Finals again. And so it goes both ways, both for the coach and the player, to have this incubator built around them to, I think, both produce highly demanding people that have high expectations and want to accomplish great things, but also have the people around them that help make sure that little fires don't turn into big fires that just blow the whole thing up.
Matt's a good dude. Cool guy to have in the organization. Let's get to our sglambchops.com Twitter question of the week.
All right, let me find it here.
And a reminder, Head Flyer Brewing, March 27th. We'll get you details on guests and exactly what that night will entail. But please come out and join us and thank Head Flyer for everything they've done for us and have a great time at a good show.
Okay, so we're going to go again, sglambchops.com, promo code JONK20 for 20% off anything that you get at Lamb Chops. And here's one from Adam Rowan. If Jaden keeps playing great during these national TV games in the playoffs, does it change the thinking of using him to get an older superstar like Giannis, especially considering Ant loves him so much? It's a good question, Adam. And I do think that a lot will sort of hinge on what happens in these playoffs. If they are one and done, if it's a real disappointing finish, and things just don't seem to come together for this group, I do think that you could see the Timberwolves revisit a Giannis trade scenario this summer and really kind of look at what it would take to get him and just really kind of change things up in a dramatic fashion. If there is another deep run, if Jaden McDaniels continues to play like he has, really most of this season, there's still some inconsistent days where he's just not involved offensively, or maybe defensively struggles with a super quick guard or something like that. But by and large, he has made a huge leap in year 6. And to Adam's point, he's still young. He's on the Ant timeline. And you can anticipate that he will continue to get better because he gets better every summer. And so if this team goes deep into the playoffs again, and Jaden McDaniels continues to play really well and shows even more of the offensive bag that he has and looks really like a legitimate two-way player, I do think that you have to think long and hard about including him in a Giannis deal, or deal for any superstar, because he is on a great contract. He is incredibly valuable. Anthony Edwards does love having him around. And so you sort of break that up at your own peril kind of a thing. And so I believe that it would have to be a rather drastic outcome in the playoffs, a rather troubling situation to emerge for them to say, you know what? Yeah, we are going to say goodbye to this 25-year-old, 6'11", defensive dynamo who also shoots 45% from 3 and gets to the rim whenever he wants. That is a very hard player to find, and so you'd have to be damn sure that you're getting just a transformative player, and maybe Giannis is that, but I continue to believe that is a less likely scenario because of how Jaden is playing. And if this team wins at the level that it expects to, I think that would be a very unlikely scenario to happen.
Good question. We appreciate it. Thanks to all of our sponsors. Thanks to everyone who listens. Thanks to our producers at TalkNorth.com. We do appreciate it. Again, March 27th, Head Flyer Brewing will be the next live show, and we will keep cranking the shows out as this really interesting team finishes this really interesting season. So for Jon Krawczynski, I'm Jim Suhan. Thanks for listening to TalkNorth.com.